And we're back on the 12 days of Christmas, and we're on number 5. So on the 5th day of Christmas, not 5 gold rings, but 5 parents bring. This is what they brought for the Beatles. Let's talk about 5 important parents. First one, Julia Lennon. Julia was so important to John in those early days. She bought him his first guitar. She taught him banjo chords, as we know, because she only played banjo, but she played piano, but not guitar. So John would tune his guitar like a banjo and would play banjo chords. So the first songs he ever learned to play were taught to him by his mum, Julia. Of course, she let the quarrymen rehearse in her house. She'd go to gigs to watch him, and she encouraged him so much with all that music. So Julia Lennon, such an important part of John's life. So she's the first of our parents. Second one, Louise Harrison. Louise was so supportive of George. When George wanted a guitar, and he was obsessed with guitars, somehow Louise managed to find the money to buy that first guitar for George. Now, like many working class families, they didn't have a lot of disposable income, but she knew that is what George wanted, and so she bought that guitar. And like with Julia, open house at the Harrison's house up in Upton Green in Speak. There were always people coming and going. Of course, once George got to know Paul, they would learn guitar together there. And Louise took on anybody who came through the door. She would feed them, she'd give them plenty to drink, and always encouraged George with his music. And as we know, once the Beatles became famous, it was Louise and her husband Harry who would receive those sackfuls of mail and answer every single letter, or let fans come into the house. So Louise Harrison, really important. 2 others, Elsie and Harry. So Ringo's mum, Elsie, was so supportive. Her husband left when Ringo was only 3 years old. She worked 2 jobs just to pay the rent on the house. And of course, Ringo was sickly as a kid, as we know, and she was always there supporting him. When she married again, when Ringo was about 13, 14, to a guy called Harry Graves, between the 2 of them, they supported Ringo, particularly because he was in hospital and suddenly became obsessed with playing the drums. And so what they said to him was, when you come out of hospital, we'll buy you a set of drums. And that's what Harry did. And Harry went all the way back down to London, because he was from Romford in Essex, just by London. Paid £10 for this little, not even a proper kit, but he brought these drums, grabs them onto the train all the way back up to Liverpool. And that was a Christmas present for his stepson. And of course, Ringo, famously with his Ringoisms, never liked the term stepfather. So he used to refer to Harry as his stepladder. So Elsie and Harry, 2 really important parents in young Richie's life. The final one, of course, we want to mention is a lady who's often written out of Beatles history, and that's Mona Best, Pete Best's mum. Now, this is the lady who decided to open a coffee bar and rock and roll club in the basement of her house just after watching a TV programme. She took all the jewellery she had, took it to the pawnbrokers, took the money, put the bet on this horse, Never Say Die, at 100 to 1, and it won the derby. She was able to buy that house. She sets this club up. Of course, the opening act, as we know, are the Quarrymen, John Paul George and Ken Brown. Mona then makes sure when the Beatles come back from Hamburg in dribs and drabs, and it could have all ended, she lets them play at the Casbah, and that becomes the base. That becomes the birthplace of the Beatles. Mona is the one who gets the Beatles into the cavern for the first time. She was the one who was always there, supporting Pete, buying him his first drum kit, obviously, and letting the Beatles keep their gear there. So Mona Best, really important part of the Beatles story, and so supportive to those early Beatles. So that's our 5 parents bring. So Julia, we've got Harry and Elsie, we've got Louise, and we've got Mona Best. So 5 parents bring, 4 Fab Fours, 3 bassmen, 2 harmonicas, and of course a young man called George Lee. Who's it going to be tomorrow for 6?